The first carrier broke warp over Juno 7 with the arrogance of a predator descending on wounded prey. Flanked by corvettes and assault barges, the Gralthis Vanguard entered low orbit with formation tight, engines flaring violet against the black. Their commander, Exarch Takar, leaned forward in his command chair, a towering figure of scaled red muscle and bone-plate armor, with 3 pupilless eyes glowing faint amber. "Initiate descent." "Minimal resistance expected," he ordered, voice guttural through the translator grid. Below them, Juno 7 lay still. From orbit, it looked like a peaceful, efficient mega-colony. Dozens of vertical districts arranged along a hex-grid lattice, each one tethered by transport spires and curved atmospheric shields. A textbook human design. Civilian. No warning beacons. No anti-air. No shield harmonics. The first wave deployed with clinical efficiency. Drop cruisers cut through the upper atmosphere in formation, hulls glowing from entry friction. Within seconds, over 700 shock troops from 4 different species had boots on the ground. Takar's secondary monitor lit up with telemetry. Breathable air, minimal local defense signals, no troop movement detected. Exactly as projected. And yet, nothing. No civilians fled, no panic riots, no countermeasures. Just wind through synthetic trees and quiet transit lines. Commander Iravel, a tall, bipedal Quarathi with elongated limbs and shimmering skin, clicked his mandibles in mild confusion. They're not evacuating. Scanners show over 3 million life signs, and none are even trying to hide. It's like they're waiting for us. "Pacification protocols, then," Takar barked. Units advanced into the city's core sectors. Open boulevards, civic towers, monorail junctions, weapons drawn, exosuits armed. Then something shifted. Without sound, without warning, the skyline began to move. Tower tips, what had appeared as communications spires and solar arches, unfurled like metallic petals, each segment clicking outward with machine precision. Beneath their folds, plasma cannons, auto-tracking turrets, missile pods locked on infrared. Vents opened in the pavement, sidewalks cracked apart. Entire buildings folded back upon themselves, morphing with terrifying speed. "What?" Iravel managed, before the first cannon fired. A beam of cobalt plasma slammed into the lead Gralthis dropship, vaporizing its core. The shockwave shredded the squads nearest the blast zone. Half of Iravel's unit disappeared into a wall of flame and metal shards. On high orbit, Takar staggered back as Juno 7's heat signature spiked violently. "What in the void is this?" Then the ground opened. The colony's central plaza split down the middle as massive seams ruptured the streets. Beneath it, layered steel armor shone like bone beneath peeled skin. The entire lower district groaned and shifted, rising from the ground on reinforced actuator pylons. Juno 7 wasn't a colony. It was a trap, a warship, a beholder-class dreadnought, fully awakened. Its hull was integrated into the urban sprawl, hidden in plain sight. Roads, towers, power conduits, civic infrastructure, all designed to unfold into weapon systems. Even the decorative fountains were pulse emitters. The playgrounds housed fuel silos. Transit lines became railgun rails. The Beholder's engines ignited, deep, resonant, not meant for orbital lift, but for annihilation. Its outer shield activated, a dome of adaptive plating refracting energy as it absorbed the initial barrage from orbit. A second later, its return volley tore through the sky. One by one, the alien ships exploded like paper targets. Corvettes shattered in mid-turn, their hulls sliced by precision lasers. An assault barge attempted evasive maneuvers. The Beholder fired a proximity missile into its path, detonating it from within. On the ground, the surviving infantry scrambled for cover. Commander Iravel, covered in ash and plasma burns, dragged himself behind a collapsed light post. His comms crackled with static. Then he heard them. Not human voices, not yet. But the sounds of machines humming, systems locking, targets tracking. And beneath it all, a silence that was worse than war cries, a silence of absolute control. He looked up. The Beholder turned its massive head turret toward the last Gralthus gunship, attempting to lift off. The weapon's barrel, longer than a city block, lit up with deep crimson. The gunship didn't make it 10 meters off the ground. Above, Takar stood frozen, his screen a blur of damage reports. Pull back! Pull back! All units, abort! His communications officer, a pale, bark-skinned Eruvian named Kolrak, looked at him in horror. Sir, the escape routes, they're closing. Takar's eyes went wide. Below him, the Beholder's surface shifted again. From what once were hangar bays, swarms of interceptor drones erupted into the sky. Fast, small, coordinated. They tore into the retreating ships with surgical cruelty. 10 minutes in, the Gralthus Vanguard had lost over 70% of its deployed force. 15 minutes in, their command ship began its descent. Not by design, but as a flaming wreck. Juno 7 was burning, but not from human desperation. From human planning. General Mark Janssen stood in silence aboard Omen, a command carrier positioned in high Earth orbit. His hands were clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the tactical feed of Juno 7. He didn't flinch as the last alien ship exploded. Beside him, Colonel Hero Vol, younger, less scarred, leaned forward. That was cleaner than I expected. Janssen nodded. That's the idea. Vol exhaled, eyes still on the display. They thought we were the prey. Janssen turned slightly. No. They thought we were livestock. Down below, the feed zoomed in on Juno 7's surface. Fires burned in tight, controlled zones. Emergency response bots, human-designed, were already securing civilian structures, keeping population centers safe. The Beholder's systems hadn't simply been built to destroy. They had been built to preserve, to shield what mattered. We'll have to assume this was just the opening wave, Vol muttered. More will come. They'll come, Janssen agreed, and they'll die. He didn't say it with pride. He said it with certainty, because Juno 7 was one of many, and humanity had stopped broadcasting fear a long time ago. Now it waited, hidden in cities, in colonies, in asteroids, in silence, ready. A shot of static cut through the Council broadcast channel. Confirmed loss of contact with Juno 7. No survivors identified, no recovery possible. The chamber fell silent. The delegates of the Surok, Olvari, Kalor Dominion, and 5 other species stared at the flickering holographic replay that looped before them. A human colony erupting into mechanized slaughter. The last frame, a Gralthus cruiser splitting apart mid-flight, froze in flicker, the image trembling as if the feed itself recoiled from the truth. High Chancellor Caden of the Olvari Confederacy gripped the arms of his floating seat, his translucent skin shifting erratically from blue to green, a sign of extreme distress in his species. "This can't be real," he muttered. "It's very real," said Lord Bratak of the Varlan Imperium, standing tall in his exoskeletal armor, his 6 scarlet eyes narrowing. And it wasn't a defense. That was retaliation. The Surok envoy, a robed figure with no discernible face, only a cascade of glimmering antennae, turned its head slowly. They were prepared. "And we were not," came a sharp voice from the Kalor representative, Senator Vexier, whose serpentine body coiled tightly on the platform. His fangs clicked nervously. "I've already ordered a second fleet toward Rhea. If this was an isolated anomaly, it must be crushed before it inspires others." The room erupted in overlapping voices, accusations, commands, panic. But none of them noticed the blinking warning that pulsed silently on their diplomatic interface. Communication, jam detected. Far across the void, in orbit above Earth, General Janssen stood before a massive holomap that rotated between star systems. Red icons blinked along the outer edges. Enemy fleet deployments. But they weren't coming fast enough. "Status," he said. Colonel Hero Vol stepped forward, data slate in hand. Fleet movements confirmed toward Rhea, Arcos Prime and Eklon Belt. All timelines hold. Janssen didn't look up. Interference protocols? Active across all approach vectors. Decoy signals are seeded. Each fleet will think they're hitting soft targets. A slight pause. And they're not, Vol added. Janssen's jaw flexed. Below them, the battle had shifted. It was no longer just about defense. Now, it was rhythm, timing. Each attack had to fall exactly as planned, synchronized like an orchestra with one purpose: mislead, misdirect, then annihilate. He turned to his operations chief, Commander Roman Albright, a grizzled officer with 2 orbital wars behind him and a prosthetic arm glowing faint blue. "Begin sequence Echo Black," Janssen said. Albright nodded. "Yes, sir." In the Arcos system, the 3rd Kalor assault fleet emerged from hyperslip near Arcos Prime, another sprawling human colony set among rings of blue crystal asteroids. No sign of mobilization, no shields online. Scans registered an active population of 1.8 million. The alien commander, Legate Rehor, a gaunt Kalor with deep crimson scales and metallic spinal armor, smirked as his fleet fanned out. "Proceed with atmospheric entry." They didn't see the weapons until they were inside the atmosphere. Entire cliff faces retracted. A network of hidden accelerator rails launched proximity mines that latched onto hulls before detonating. Civilian towers folded backward into shock turrets. Plasma blooms tore through the air like molten spears. By the time they realized the cliffs were armed, half their forward line was already gone. Rhea was worse. The Olvari cruiser, Light of Accord, approached with ceremonial banners extended, symbolic of a pacification mission. Their culture believed in symbolic clarity. They came to reprogram, not exterminate. They didn't expect the colony's streets to rise. The main thoroughfare, once filled with solar taxis and produce vendors, pulled apart in layers. Stacked missile arrays emerged, with payloads specifically tuned to Olvari resonance shields. Captain Velros barely got out a single order before his command bridge was hit by a kinetic spike from beneath the surface. The spike impaled the bridge, splitting the hull from stern to bow. From orbit, the Beholder-class ship, hidden beneath Rhea's terrain, ascended through a controlled eruption, its armor gleaming with dust and blood. Another fake colony. Another tomb for the invaders. To those watching from space, it looked like the planet itself had grown fangs. In the Eklon Belt, the mining stations had always been written off by alien intelligence as industrial outposts, low threat. No major military hardware, no confirmed weapons grid. They weren't wrong. What they missed was what the miners had been hiding. Fusion pulse detonators planted across the asteroids, each one synchronized to explode as enemy vessels moved into position. A total of 23 enemy ships, mostly Surok and Aruvian, disappeared in seconds, swallowed by expanding fields of white-hot debris. The Beholder didn't even need to fire. It simply watched from the shadow of a moonlet, engines cold, waiting to see who else would come. Back in orbit, Janssen stood still as more data populated the table before him. Red markers went dark. Green zones expanded. "Sir," Vol said quietly. "Civilian casualties, under 0.6%. All confirmed were from enemy collateral fire." Janssen nodded once. "Upload targeting analysis to archives. We may need the recordings." Albright's voice came over the comm again. "General, intercepted chatter from the Kalor fleet shows confusion. They think they've hit a planetary defense network. They haven't even realized they walked into a full offensive platform." "They will," Janssen muttered. "Too late." Across the galaxy, chaos grew. Alien councils scrambled to recalibrate. Fleets rerouted. Some species attempted to open diplomatic channels, all jammed. Some sent scouts to untouched human outposts, hoping to assess their value. None returned. In the halls of power, analysts screamed about information warfare, about premeditated technological subterfuge. But the truth was simpler. Humanity had planned this. Planned it with patience, with surgical focus. Not out of vengeance, out of understanding. They knew what the vote meant. They knew the timetable. They had known for years, and now the trap was closing. Atop the command platform, Janssen finally spoke. No messages go out. Vol looked up. Even the surrender requests? Especially the surrender requests. They made their choice. The room quieted. "Sir," Albright said, "what do we tell the civilians on the fringe systems? They're starting to panic. They're asking why we're not saying anything." Janssen stared out the observation window. Earth shimmered below, wrapped in the orbital grid. Dozens of stealth defense stations hanging like stars in a web. "We don't explain silence," Janssen said. "We enforce it." And just beneath the hum of the ship, another alert chimed softly. Another beholder awakening. Another battlefield already set. General Janssen sat alone in the dim observation chamber aboard Omen, eyes fixed on a thin, wavering line of light on the surface of Earth. Below, the sun crawled across the Atlantic. Beyond it, the planet looked unchanged. Blue, green, serene. But above that calmness, buried in orbits and asteroid belts and listening posts, his machines were moving. A soft chime echoed in the silence. Another fleet had vanished. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply closed his eyes for a second, jaw tense, then turned from the window. It hadn't started like this. 13 years earlier. The war room beneath Antarctica's ice shelf buzzed with pressure and doubt. Hollow maps glowed in red and blue, lines connecting systems like veins, feeding into a dying heart. General Janssen, younger, leaner, less lined by time, stood at the head of a long glass table. "The vote will happen," he said. "And when it does, they won't just occupy Earth. They'll harvest us." He tapped a node labeled Calderus, then Rhea, then Arcos Prime. "We've intercepted signals from at least 6 council species. They're coordinating troop placement before the vote is even public. A beat. They won't just come for our homes. They'll come for our children." Across the table, Dr. Arturo Rudolph, lead military engineer and chief of Deep Systems Design, adjusted his glasses. "General, you're proposing we convert entire colonies into warships." "Not warships," Janssen corrected. "Traps." Rudolph frowned. "With respect, I don't need respect," Janssen cut him off. "I need results." From the corner, Roman Albright, then a field systems analyst, now commander, spoke for the first time. "If we build them as colonies first, integrate the systems gradually, over a decade, even advanced scans won't catch it." He looked around. It would work. They'd never see it coming. Janssen nodded once. "Then that's what we do. We start building ghosts," Rudolph hesitated. "And if it escalates, if they send fleets beyond what we can match?" Janssen leaned forward, his voice steady. "We don't match. We blind them. We confuse them. We tear out their teeth before they know who bit them." Rudolph looked down. "And the civilians? We build these colonies to protect them from the inside out. But if the time comes..." He paused, the weight of it already in his voice. "They'll be safer inside a beholder than anywhere else in the galaxy." Now, in the present, one of those machines activated. Aboard the Surok carrier Vexulum, Commander Tharn observed what should have been a quiet moon colony, Makara Station, suddenly burst with electromagnetic interference. Screens scrambled, sensors inverted. What had been calm power readings spiked violently. "Status?" Tharn barked. His elongated body, wrapped in living silk armor, slithered across the deck toward the control pillar. Multiple black eyes blinked in sequence. "We've lost contact with 4 escorts," his navigator replied, a pale Nolarite with pulsating ridges along his skull. "They're firing on each other." No commands issued. "No, that's not possible. Is it a virus?" Before the question settled, 2 of his own ships turned their cannons toward the flagship. Artificial targeting lights blinked across their hulls, red, human-coded, burning like eyes. They fired. The Vexulum took direct hits along its port side, hull buckling, crew flung sideways. Sirens screamed across species in every known pitch. From the colony below, spires rose from what had once been irrigation towers. At their tips, reverse energy displacers, human-built, alien-inspired, designed to overload optical targeting systems and mimic friendly identification tags. The result was chaos. Friendly ships turned on each other. Ground units fired on their own transport lines. Drones refused input commands, rerouting signals to false echoes. And then the second phase triggered. A pulse, not sound, but data, compressed in a sequence stolen years ago from Olvari comm structures, refined by human codebreakers, weaponized. It blanked everything. Transports fell from orbit like stones. Elsewhere, the panic spread. On Zelvaris, homeworld of the HFY Combine, panic erupted in the capital tower. Advisors swarmed around High Consul Drex, a massive being with gray-scaled skin and fractal-patterned eyes, who watched 4 screens at once, each showing a human colony, each one igniting in fire. "They are coordinated," he hissed. They knew the vote would pass before it was cast. A junior aide stammered, "Shall we evacuate, Consul?" Now. Orders flew, ships lifted. And then the sky above Zelvaris fractured. 3 human stealth platforms uncloaked, small, silent, deadly. They'd been waiting in the system for days, hidden beneath the magnetic shadow of a nearby gas giant. Before the HFY ships cleared lower orbit, they were intercepted. Pulse-laced railguns, gravitic clamps, implosion warheads, 28 transports, all non-combat, gone in less than 3 minutes. Drex watched in horror as his escape collapsed in fire. "They were never defending Earth," he whispered. "They were hunting us." Back in orbit, Jansen moved between tactical tables, his hands clasped behind his back, posture exact. Roman Albright updated from the side console. "Surak formations have fragmented. 58% of their fleet is gone. Internal fire." "Good," Jansen replied. "Next system? Veltrin Sigma. First phase pulses already seeded. Target lock by 32 minutes. From behind, Hero Vol approached, holding a holopad. "Sir, we're intercepting distress calls. Not military, civilian. Transmissions in multiple dialects, families, regional leaders, even children." Jansen didn't answer right away. He walked to the edge of the command platform and looked at the map, now littered with fading red markers and expanding zones of silence. "What do we do with the messages?" Hero asked again, softer now. Jansen exhaled through his nose. "Store them." He turned away. "We're not ready to listen yet." And somewhere far away, buried beneath the surface of a quiet mining outpost, another beholder stirred. It didn't roar. It didn't light up. It opened its eyes, sensors cycling, systems warming, readying the next silence. Above Earth, Omen floated in absolute stillness, surrounded by the shadowed bulk of humanity's final defense net. Nothing moved. No lights blinked. No weapons pulsed. The formation looked almost decorative, until someone got close. But no one did. The alien fleets that had once charted direct courses to Sol now stopped cold at the system's edges. Scouting ships turned back before crossing Pluto's orbit. No probes returned. Every attempt to ping human defense systems came back blank, swallowed in digital static, or lost to black silence. It wasn't a shield they feared. It was the silence behind it. In the grand chamber of the Eruvian Ascendancy, panic had eroded order. Advisor Keltas, a bone-pale humanoid with bioluminescent veins threading across his neck and face, stood surrounded by fractured holoscreens. Each showed a different catastrophe. Each showed human retaliation unfolding with impossible precision. "What is the pattern?" he shouted, pointing to a cascade of system losses. "What logic drives it?" None of his staff answered. Why haven't they spoken? Why haven't they declared war like any sentient species? Still, no one answered. Across from him, General Kavrin of the Drask Dominion, armored in segmented crimson plates, jaw trembling, gripped the edges of his console as the red blips on his screen blinked out one by one. His voice was low, almost like prayer. They already did. We just didn't hear it. Back in Earth orbit, Roman Albright stood beside Janssen in the main operations deck. Data floated silently in the air around them, color-coded clusters of active sectors, dead fleets, unanswered transmissions. Janssen stared at it all, unreadable. Hero Vol approached from the upper walkway, descending the steel steps with a steady pace. We intercepted a coded infiltration attempt. Which sector? Albright asked. High Atmo, one of the upper band satellites, Net Beacon 12. Janssen turned his head slightly. Result? They were already tagged before they breached low orbit. 6 infiltrators, Shivari and Waishen. Their shuttle was stripped mid-flight by the orbital AI. Not even a heat signature left. Shivari, winged, insectile, expert in biological cloaking. Yishin, bipedal predators bred for sabotage, skin chameleon reactive to dozens of spectrums. They were elite. Didn't matter. Janssen didn't speak. He just glanced toward the massive central window. The Earth, perfect and blue, continued to spin beneath them. In the halls of the Kylo Dominion, Minister Ryev slammed his tail against the stone floor, his scaled body quivering with suppressed rage. We should have hit them faster, stronger, broken their comms before they spread. They never spread, replied Admiral Joel, voice heavy. They waited. We came to them. A low murmur rippled through the room. Holomaps showed the solar system encased in a strange grid, hundreds of faint, almost transparent dots forming a net of death. No ships entered, none left, no warnings, no ultimatums. They've sealed their home behind a coffin of metal, Ryev hissed. No, said Joel, staring at the map. That's not a coffin, that's a mirror. In Omen's command chamber, the tension wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It lived in every controlled breath, every silent stare, every calculated press of a holographic key. One of the junior officers, Lieutenant Ames, turned from his console. Young, sharp, nervous. Sir. Janssen looked up just once. They're broadcasting again. Not us. Them. Emergency channels. Senate feeds. I think they're breaking. He pulled the image up. Multiple streams emerged in silence, then audio faded in. Panicked voices in several alien tongues. Translations overlaying in real time. A Valari senator sobbed on a diplomatic floor, clutching his own robes, screaming at unseen cameras. Ceasefire! We vote to reverse! Reverse the vote, damn it! They can't hear us! Why can't they hear us? The camera feed cut out in static. Another stream showed the Varlan High Council. One of their generals collapsed mid-sentence during a press broadcast. Heart failure. 2 aides tried to revive him, while others wept off-screen. Albright lowered his eyes. Sir, they're breaking down. Vol, watching another stream, whispered, It's not just fear, it's guilt. Arms again. Do we answer, sir? Just one of them? Janssen didn't respond immediately. He watched a third stream. Kaelor senators screaming at each other, drawing blades in their council chambers, accusing one another of betrayal, of lies, of orchestrating extinction. The broadcast ended with one of them, an elder with bone piercings on his snout, staring dead-eyed into the lens. We woke them. Finally, Janssen spoke. Not yet. The room froze. We don't speak, he continued. Not until they understand. Albright tilted his head. Sir, they're asking if we're even listening. We are, Janssen said, but we're not ready to talk. He turned toward the main viewport. The Earth turned slowly beneath the stars. They're not ready to listen. Elsewhere, 3 more infiltration attempts were stopped cold. In each case, the alien teams never made it past human satellites. Some were dismantled in mid-drift. Others were fed false coordinates and led into kill traps already primed. No broadcasts claimed responsibility. No warning was issued. No flare of rage. No statement of power. Only silence. That night, if time had meaning in orbit, Janssen stood alone in his quarters. Datapad dim in his hand. Messages flickered on the screen. Dozens of alien tongues, some official, some broken and desperate. He scrolled. He stopped. A single message from the Surak assembly translated into one plain line of text. "We regret the vote." He read it again and again, then turned the screen off. Behind him the earth hung in the void, untouched, encircled, waiting. The first beholder broke through Varlan's outer orbit without a warning shot. The Varlan high defense grid, active for over a millennium, didn't detect its approach. Not because it was invisible, but because its arrival had been calculated to slip between Varlan's orbital sweeps, synchronized to their planetary rotation, magnetic drift, and defense cycle refresh intervals. It wasn't stealth, it was strategy. The second and third beholders dropped seconds later, emerging from folded space like specters. Their hulls gleamed with the burns of distant battles. Within seconds, their bays opened and weapons ignited. Inside Varlan's command citadel, Supreme Marshal Theros slammed a clawed fist into the control slab. "What are they doing in our skies? Where are our interdictors?" The officer at the terminal, Colonel Varex, a graying Varlan with split crest horns and a ceremonial jawplate, spoke without looking up. They didn't come through the interdiction lanes. They didn't arrive. They were already here. Theros roared, pacing in fury. "Then fire every orbital cannon. All batteries, now!" The room trembled before he finished speaking. Outside, the beholders struck with coordinated precision. A grid of magneto-lances deployed in perfect orbit, followed by kinetic rail barrages. Each round hit within a meter of its target coordinates: military bunkers, shield nodes, dry docks, power plants. The Varlan military bastion was disassembled in 40 minutes. Thousands of years of dominance. Gone. From the bridge of the Omen, Janssen stood watching the playback in silence. On the main display, Varlan burned in slow spirals of smoke and molten ruin. Sensor data overlaid each impact. Red zones flickered, targets neutralized. Blue zones, untouched. Albright approached. Civilian zones all intact. Beholders isolated only military complexes. Hero Vol added, "They had families in the bunkers, sir, officers, command staff. Some were evacuated, some weren't fast enough." A quiet hung in the air. Janssen didn't look away. "We didn't come for their children." Hours later, the Kalor Dominion received a transmission from their outer settlements, an automated ping from a refugee convoy, supposedly routed from a human-aligned neutral world. Dozens of ships, hundreds of beings, all requesting sanctuary. Kalor Admiral Vexir stood aboard the Spireclaw, his scaled tail wrapped around the rail of the command dais. Slitted eyes narrowed at the data readout. "Human refugees?" "Yes, Admiral," replied his comms officer, a thin, multi-eyed creature with bio-enhanced auditory sensors. "The beacon is legitimate. Encoding matches prior humanitarian protocols. No weapon signature." Vexir considered it for a moment. "Bring them into orbit. Begin docking procedures." The convoy drifted closer. That was the mistake, because there were no refugees, and there were no ships, just projections. The moment the Kalor fleet dropped formation to allow boarding, the rift opened. From behind a false moon, a single beholder surfaced. It deployed no troops, it issued no demands. Instead, its core module opened, a weaponized gravity chamber, designed not for defense, but for singularity deployment. A pulsing hum filled the comms. Kalor officers scrambled. "What is that field?" "Unstable mass. Sir, gravitic readings are redlining." In space, the beholder's weapon pulsed once, and reality folded. A miniature black hole, contained for less than 7 seconds before collapse, dragged the entire Kalor fleet into itself. No explosion, no shockwave, just silence, and a spreading cloud of fragmented steel and nullified matter. Back aboard the Omen, the feed cut out. Albright turned away first. They didn't even have time to panic. Janssen didn't respond. From behind, a junior tactician, Lieutenant Joran, spoke cautiously. "General, Some of them are surrendering now, broadcasting apologies. Please, we've broken them. Maybe it's time. Jansen turned slowly. They voted together. He looked Joran in the eyes. They'll understand together. On the broken surface of Kalor Prime, General Sulveth watched the sky dissolve. The fleet, his fleet, was gone. His aides shouted behind him, their voices distant, muffled by the dread pooling in his chest. He didn't move. A young officer, Commander Hrix, approached, visor cracked, blood trickling down his scaled face. "Sir, we still have escape shuttles." "For what?" Sulveth said. Silence. Hrix swallowed. "We didn't know." Sulveth looked at him. "We didn't want to know." He turned toward the smoldering horizon. "We thought they were weak because they were quiet, because they had no empire, no lords, no old gods." His voice was low, bitter. "But they built something else." In the wreckage of Varlan's High Council, Marshal Theros was dragged from beneath the rubble by his adjutant. Blood ran from a gash across his temple. Half his armor was melted. "We have to reach orbit," the adjutant pleaded. But Theros pushed him off. He sat there among the dead, smoke rising from the ruin of a war room. "They were never defending Earth," he muttered. "They were preparing to erase the idea that anyone could take it." Jansen stepped away from the tactical displays. The deck of the Omen remained dim, illuminated only by the ghost light of enemy systems going dark, one after the other. He walked to the edge of the observation window. Albright joined him after a pause. "They'll remember this," he said. Jansen's voice was quiet. "They'll never forget it." The Kalor system was silent. Not quiet, silent. No patrols scanned the border. No command signals pulsed across the grid. The Dominion's once glorious fleet lay shattered across its own orbital lanes, drifting debris marking the end of an era. In the outer rim, a handful of vessels, medical ships, outdated scouts, even transports, attempted to flee without orders, direction, or certainty. They weren't escaping a war. They were escaping its absence. Aboard the Omen, the war table displayed a galaxy with fewer voices. The beholders had ceased fire. The orbital defenses of Earth remained active, but inert, ready, but at rest. Jansen stood at the far edge of the bridge, one hand resting on the rail as he watched message after message populate the command feed. They no longer came from generals. They came from civilians. Albright was first to speak. "Command signatures are gone from 6 of the 13 coalition fleets. 5 haven't issued an order in over 18 hours. Collapse," Vol said flatly. "Total chain failure. There's no one left to follow." Jansen didn't react. His eyes tracked the slow rotation of a dying red dot across the interface, another system going dark. In the dim silence of the secondary communications deck, Lieutenant Leonard Kazama stood alone, reviewing intercepted transmissions. He didn't speak at first. His jaw clenched, shoulders tight. Then he whispered, almost without realizing, "Sir, you should hear this." Jansen approached without a word. Kazama tapped the console and a recording played. The voice was ragged, male, alien, translated through layers of distortion. "We do not ask for mercy, only for the lives of those who did not vote. My son was born during the siege. He doesn't know war, he only knows silence. If there's anyone left to hear this, please, let him live." Jansen's gaze was fixed on the projection. A dim, grainy image showed a small chamber, flickering lights, a child asleep in the background. The general said nothing. His hand closed slowly around the edge of the console, not in anger, not even tension, control. Another message followed, this time from the Wraith sector. "We were told you were monsters. That Earth would collapse in hours. Now our elders speak only of shadows, of precision, of regret. We didn't know you had built this. We didn't know what you remembered." Then a third, a child's voice. "If you stop the war, I'll draw you a picture." And in the background, you could hear paper rustling, as if she'd already started. The translator didn't filter the child's tremble. It carried through in every syllable. Vol stepped forward from the main deck. We've compiled over 400 civilian transmissions, dozens of them from regional governors, some from what's left of former military. Jansen turned toward him. Any threats? Vol shook his head. None. Some ask for terms. Most just ask for quiet, safe passage, water. Roman Albright added, We've already won. If the goal was fear, it's complete. If it was collapse, it's here. Sir, he hesitated. Is this the moment? Jansen walked slowly toward the center of the bridge. He stopped at the holotable. The galaxy glowed in red fractures and blue shadows. He watched it in silence. A single message cube sat on the edge of the console. It had arrived 20 minutes ago, not encoded, not encrypted. Broadcast openly on diplomatic channels. Jansen picked it up, activated it. A face appeared, aged, tired, scaled with golden ridges and eyes that no longer held pride. A Kalor civilian administrator. No rank, no medals. I voted with the rest. I raised my hand like they told me. I didn't ask what it meant. I didn't think it mattered. I thought it was just Earth. He swallowed. You made us look at what we did, not what you did. What we did. We made you prepare for this. I see it now. The message ended. Jansen stood still. Everyone on the bridge waited. No orders were given. The hum of the ship filled the space where strategy had once lived. Finally, Leonard Kazama broke the silence from the comms bay. Sir, we have confirmation that multiple capital species are evacuating their inner worlds. Not with force, with civilians. There's no military presence left. Vol leaned on the console. There's no war left to fight. Albright turned to Jansen. What now? Jansen didn't answer. He stared at the message cube, then slowly set it down. He moved to the viewport at the front of the bridge. Earth turned beneath him, wrapped in the lattice of orbital guardians, clean and untouched by the chaos it had unleashed. Its silence wasn't passive, it was deliberate. His hand gripped the edge of the railing, his eyes closed. He stayed that way for 5 seconds, then opened his eyes. The fire was gone. Only gravity remained. We didn't want this, Jansen said quietly. No one interrupted. We didn't ask for this, he continued. We gave them time. We gave them silence, and they voted to break it. He looked back at his officers. But they've had enough. The men around him didn't cheer, didn't breathe in relief. They just nodded, as soldiers, as witnesses. Vol approached slowly. Sir, do we speak? Jansen nodded once. We speak. He turned back to the bridge. Prepare transmission protocols. Roman Albright began inputting the data. Vol moved to the encoding terminal. Leonard Kazama stood still for a moment, then returned to his station. A single beam of white light illuminated the center of the command deck. Jansen stepped into it. The systems hummed to life. Galactic networks aligned. The signal would go everywhere, every surviving system, every broken fleet, every world that had ever raised a hand in that chamber. It was time to answer, time to end the silence. The command chamber of the Omen fell into a low, taut silence as the order went out. Across the bridge, terminals lit up in sequence. Engineers and signal techs moved without speaking, their gestures rehearsed, precise. What came next would not be transmitted. It would be imposed. The transmission beacon at the center of the operations core began to warm, pale blue light climbing the polished metal columns. Around it, the system interfaces synchronized. Layered code began stitching across thousands of frequencies, some military, some diplomatic, many civilian. Every one of them was about to carry a message they could not refuse. Roman Albright adjusted the uplink manually, fingers gliding through the last authentication layers. Signal route locked. Encoding complete. We'll break into all major channels and override passive blocks. Vol nodded, eyes on the map overlay. They'll hear us whether they want to or not. Albright glanced over his shoulder. They need to. At the far side of the chamber, General Jansen stepped onto the transmission platform. His uniform was clean, formal, not ornate, but unmistakable in its authority. He carried no weapon, no symbol of rank, just presence. The lights above the platform flickered as the high-resolution feed activated. A low hum rose from the floor, stabilizing with a deep, mechanical tone that resonated through the chamber. Across the command deck, men stopped what they were doing. No one was ordered to. No one was told. They simply stood still. Lieutenant Kazama, now at the secondary console, looked toward the general with a hesitation that hadn't been there in the first days of battle. His voice, quiet, carried enough to reach the center of the room. "Sir, are you really going to say it all?" Jansen didn't move at first. Then, slowly, he turned his head. "I'm not here to be remembered," he said. "I'm here to be understood." Kazama nodded once, then returned to his task. One deck below, in the archive bay, the imagery archive compiled automatically. The footage ran in brutal sequence. Varlan's orbital grid shattering, Kalor's fleet swallowed by a black void, the Eklon Belt's detonations recorded from 5 angles. Then came the faces, generals begging, senators weeping, civilians reaching for comms no one answered. The AI selected the final loop, a rotation of dead systems, flashing in sequence over a hollow galactic map. Back in the transmission chamber, the system gave a single chime. Ready. Vol stepped toward the platform. "Camera is live on your cue. You'll be appearing in real time across all major systems. 71% of all surviving comm infrastructure is patched through." "Do it," Jansen said. The chamber went still. A thin white light snapped down across the platform, illuminating him in full. Shadows vanished. The galaxy was watching. Jansen inhaled slowly. Every major system, from the remnants of the Krathen Arc to the half-lit moons of Zelvaris, received the signal at once. Screens froze. Diplomatic consoles dimmed, then flared. Military devices rebooted without warning. Civilian terminals lit up, displaying one face, one voice. General Mark Jansen, human, eyes forward, shoulders squared. No insignia, no decorum. Just a man carved by necessity. He spoke. "You voted to enslave us." His voice was calm, heavy, not loud, but unshakable. Every raised hand, every recorded eye, every breath you took in that chamber, you took believing we would fold, that we would accept your authority, that we would forget our past. He stepped forward slightly. We did not. Across the galaxy, the silence tightened. Children stared at screens. Soldiers dropped their rifles. Leaders leaned closer, some collapsing into their seats. Jansen didn't pause. We were not made for conquest. We were not bred for empire. We were not raised to kneel. He pointed to the feed, knowing what followed. You thought our silence meant weakness. It meant preparation. Images overlaid as he spoke. Juno 7's eruption, Rhea's awakening, the beholders rising like titans beneath sleeping cities. Each of your fleets walked willingly into what we built, not out of hatred, not out of rage, but out of knowledge. We remembered everything you tried to forget. He let those words sit, just long enough. Your fleets are gone. Your weapons failed before they fired. Your governments dissolved in your own fear. And now, with your houses burning, you send us messages asking for mercy. He leaned forward, voice low. Not forgiveness. Then, a pause. They want mercy. In the Kalor wreckage field, an admiral watched with shaking hands. On Varlan's charred surface, a surviving senator whispered Jansen's name. In the outer belts, a refugee pilot wept silently as the broadcast continued. No species chooses slavery, Jansen said, eyes steady. We didn't, and we never will. The final image appeared behind him. Earth, whole, alive, surrounded by its silent guardians. He looked directly into the lens. If you ever vote on us again, think twice before raising your hand. The feed cut in unison across all systems. No outro, no anthem, no emblem. Just silence. And this time, it wasn't Earth that kept it. The stars did not blink. After the transmission ended, no responses came. No retaliation. No declarations. The galactic relay grid, once pulsing with diplomatic chatter and military directives, went still. Jansen's final words reverberated through systems large and small, across languages and cultures, leaving behind only the static hum of a silence too thick to cut. It was not the silence of failure. It was the silence of realization. On the bridge of the Omen, the lights dimmed automatically. The transmission beacon shut down with a soft exhale of pressure. General Jansen stood for a long time beneath the still warm light of the platform, eyes lingering on nothing in particular. His uniform, pressed and without a crease, carried no medals. His hands hung at his sides. His shoulders didn't relax. Albright was the first to speak. They heard it. Vol confirmed from the signal relay console. Every system on the map. No interference, no rejections. Full playback in every quadrant. Leonard Kazama added from the lower deck, voice quiet, reverent. And none of them replied. Jansen turned slowly toward the wide forward viewport. Good, he said. They understood. Far beyond the reach of the primary communication grid, on the edge of the Mirael expanse, a last-ditch escape fleet drifted in fractured formation. Its ships, Kalor, Varlin, and remnants of the Aruvian armada, carried no flags, no transponders, just scars, hulls pockmarked from near misses and glancing blows, life support systems running at minimal capacity. Their warp drives were hot from repeated jumps, coolant leaking from ruptured chambers. Inside the command vessel Deer Awake, Admiral Yeshar paced in silence. His exoskeletal limbs clanked softly with each step across the command deck. His scales, once a polished emerald sheen, were dulled, cracked. The last 3 days had aged him more than the last 3 decades. "Anything?" he asked, voice sharp but stripped of edge. Commander Drask, his second, shook his broad head. No pursuit, no messages, only the broadcast. Yeshar stopped. "What's the last system that answered a hail?" "Ardenthel. 2 days ago. Civilian distress call. Then nothing." Yeshar looked at the flickering galactic map projected in front of him. Red X markers signified fallen systems. Blue rings, presumed hostile human strongholds. Green. There were no green anymore. "How many ships do we have?" Drask hesitated. 67. 12 still combat capable. 38 with partial shielding. The rest are limping. "And the crew. Most are conscripts. Injured. Families." Yeshar's breath caught. They had escaped no one. Only time. The proximity alarm flashed. All movement on the bridge stopped. A junior officer, one of the last trained at the Kalor Academy, whispered, "3 signatures, emerging from fold space." Drask turned pale. "Bearing." The response came before the data fully loaded. Dead ahead. 3 massive shadows emerged from the black. No comms, no weapon locks, just presence. The beholders appeared without a sound. They held formation, perfectly spaced. Their hulls reflected faint ambient light, revealing no name, no insignia. Just that same seamless black alloy that had become synonymous with destruction. They did not charge weapons. They did not hail. They simply waited. Inside the Dire Wake, Yeshar stared at them. "They're not attacking," someone whispered. "Why would they?" Drask muttered. "They already know we're done." A long silence. Yeshar looked around the bridge. "Power down all weapon systems." Drask blinked. "Sir, everything. Life support only. Disable shields, drop active targeting." The room hesitated, then moved. One by one, the displays dimmed. Cannons retracted into housings. Reactive armor switched to passive mode. Light indicators blinked amber, then red, then off. Other ships followed. Through the viewport, more vessels in the fleet began shutting down their lights. Weapon clusters dimmed, defensive screens faded. The once scattered formation drifted together like debris pulled inward by gravity. No orders were given beyond that, only understanding. Aboard the Omen, the movement was noted. Roman Albright stood over the tactical display, watching the Mirael fleet's signature shrink and cool. They're powering down. No distress signal, no retreat vector. Hero Vol glanced at Jansen. They're not surrendering with words. They don't need to, Jansen said. We already heard them. Elsewhere, in a half-lit corridor of a decaying orbital relay station, a Sharkai elder watched the final moments of the broadcast again on loop. He had been one of the original delegates. His name had been recorded in the Council archives beside the vote to enslave Earth. Now he sat alone, hands trembling, mouth open, no words left. On the lower decks of the Omen, Kazama watched the communications feed dim. One by one, each galactic node went dark, not forcibly, but voluntarily, a coordinated act of silence. Not fear, surrender. Kazama spoke softly into the command channel. They're not speaking back, sir. Jansen, now seated in his chair, gave a single nod. Because they've said enough. In orbit above Earth, the planetary defense ring remained active, its layers of satellites and platforms casting a shield of quiet vigilance across the stars. But no systems tracked new threats, no targets painted, no warnings fired, because none were needed. Somewhere in the deep black between galaxies, an old Drask captain aboard a refugee freighter looked up at the last echo of Jansen's speech on a flickering screen. He closed his eyes and turned the monitor off. Back on the bridge of the Omen, Albright deactivated the last active broadcast relay. It's done, he said. Vol stood beside him. They listened. General Jansen said nothing. He rose from his seat and walked once more to the viewport. Earth remained. The galaxy had tried to erase its name from the stars. And now it listened. Now it remembered. And now, for the first time, it truly understood what it meant to vote against humanity. Not because of what humanity destroyed, but because of what it chose not to. The war was over, and no one dared speak its name. Hey, you're still here. That's awesome. Hope you had a great time with the story. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really makes a huge difference to the channel. And hey, I've got something else for you. I've chosen another story that I think you'll really enjoy. Just click the card right here, or hit this one to jump into the full playlist. See you in the next one.